welcome to my Thursday live. Janine Regan-Sinclair here, and today I would like to share a bit of information with you about consciousness in regard to relationships, as particularly karmic relationships. Now, those of you that don't know about my teachings about the cubes of consciousness, everything we experience, every relationship we've ever experienced has been stored in our cubes of consciousness over this lifetime, many other lifetimes, and what we believe about relationships and our ancestors believe about relationships is also stored in our consciousness. And throughout our lives, we're going to have relationships. I'm talking about relationships with a partner, as in intimate relationships. So, girl-boy relationships rather than relationships with friends and family, even though they can be karmic as well. The kind of relationships I'm talking about are love partners, the ones we fall in love with, we settle down with, marry, we have long-term relationships, short-term relationships, and they can be anything from, a few minutes to a few hours to one night to a week to a month to a year to years, and every now and then lifetimes. Some people get together when they're their first love and they spend the rest of their lives with them. In my lifetime, I've only known one couple that got together when they were, I think, 16 and 18 or something like that, and are now in their early 60s and they're still together, but that's more unusual. So, for example, you could bump into someone and let's say that girl meets boy and there's this overwhelming sense of this is my soulmate, the connection, there's a really strong heartfelt connection there, even to the point where you feel that it's love at first sight. If this ever happens to you, I would be very careful about not jumping in too quickly, and this is the reason why. I went through a scenario like this myself a long time ago now. It's probably 17, 18 years ago, something like that, where I met someone and the connection between us was phenomenal, and it was instant, like it was love at first sight, but it wasn't the kind of love that makes you feel all giddy and butterflies and so on and so forth. It was deeper than that. It was the kind of deep love that you feel for someone you know and trust, and it's quite overwhelming at the time because it was not something that had happened to me before, and I was just over 40 when it happened. So I at the time didn't have that much experience about karmic relationships and twin souls, twin flames, soulmates, all of this stuff. It wasn't really an area that I'd looked into very much until I met this man and was questioning myself. Why do I feel this deep love for this person I've only known a week? And it was within, I would say, 6 weeks, this man was talking to me about marriage and, really intense moving forward as a couple. And I started to put the brakes on because I thought, this doesn't feel normal to me. It feels overwhelming, if I'm honest. But when I meditated on it and found out what was going on, the dynamics of the relationship changed completely. It was as if I was under this kind of delusional past life experience that was making me feel like I should follow my heart. And most people would say follow your heart, but when your heart is really, really in love with someone that you've not known very long, there's a good reason to take a step back and look into it. And that's what I did, because I'm not the kind of person that falls in love with a man very easily. In fact, in my whole life, I've probably been in love twice, I would say. And when I looked into it, what I found made me understand why we both felt that way, and it was overwhelming for both of us. And this is the reason why. We all have previous lifetimes. We have previous lifetimes with certain soul clusters and soul groups, and within that group we change places when we reincarnate into different positions so we can work through the karma with whoever is in our soul group. And everyone's had this kind of feeling at some point in their journey where they've met someone and feel like they've known them for forever, or they've met someone and they really can't stand them and they don't know why, or it's because of karmic relationships. So what I discovered with the man that I met was that in a previous lifetime we were in different positions within our soul cluster, and he was my mother in one lifetime and I was his father in another lifetime. So what we felt when we came together was a deep, deep mother-child, father-child, soul relationship kind of frequency that was, you know, those of you that have got children, or those of you who've even got a pet, a cat, a dog, you know what unconditional love feels like, because you feel it for your children, for your pets, and well, hopefully that was the feeling that I got when we came together. So when I did the investigative work in meditation, that's what I found out. Once I realized that, the energy of around that relationship changed, and the part that was doing, you know, all the courting, the wooing, and so on and so forth, on his side started to become fear of commitment and not turning up, you know, for dates and stuff like that, and not finishing the relationship, but just being sloppy, for want of a better word, in the relationship. So once I realized what it was, it changed the dynamic of the relationship, and true colors started to shine through. That, you know, I couldn't rely on this person, that obviously they were mirroring fear of commitment with me, which I understood at the time because I'd come out of a very tumultuous relationship before that, and I wasn't in any hurry to jump into another one when I met this person. And that's why the red flags were jumping out in front of me, because I'm not impulsive when it comes to love. In fact, the twice I have been in love, I would say it took me at least 6 months to get, you know, dating that person and seeing a lot of them in that time before I opened my heart to them. So if you do meet somebody and you get this overwhelming unconditional love, this is my soulmate kind of feeling, just be careful is my advice. Take a step back, look into it, find someone who can help you find out if you've had previous lifetimes with this person, if there's any karmic stuff that needs to be worked through with this person. They may have come back into your life because they owe you something, or you owe them something. They may have come back into your life because they've got a piece of your heart from another lifetime where, you know, you said you were gonna that you loved them forever, and you gave them a piece of your heart. Giving people your heart, people say things like that all the time, and on an energetic level that can look like a little orb of shiny white light, which is a piece of your heart. But if you've done my astral projection workshops, you've got and the Akashic Records workshops, my online courses, you've got the skills you need to be able to look into this. So you can go into your Akashic Records, ask about any outstanding contracts or information with this person that's come into your life, and is there any outstanding karma in there that I need to work through or know about? Have they got anything of mine? Have they got a piece of my heart? Have they got a piece of my joy? Have they got a piece of my power? Sometimes we get disempowered and we lose a piece of our power to another person, but sometimes they may be holding on to a piece of your energy. I call it holding it in guardianship. So they've got a piece of your energetic spiritual body that they've been taking care of for you until you were ready to receive it. And it could be, I've spoken about this a little bit before, that too much joy, when you've got grief to work through, the joy can override the grief, and you're not getting the grief out of your system because there's too much joy in there. I know that sounds weird, but it can. Sometimes you've got to go down into the mud to heal those negative emotions and then come back out, rather than putting a lovely fluffy blanket of joy over the top and ignoring what's underneath it because the joy feels more powerful. It doesn't wipe the grief away hiding behind joy. The grief is still would need to come out, or the anger would still need to come out, or the jealousy or the envy or the unforgiveness or whatever it is underneath that layer. So there are lots of reasons people can come into our lives. It's not just what we're seeing on the outside, and it's important people understand this in relationships, because if we rush in to something thinking this is our soulmate or our twin soul or something like that, we may find that we start hitting major obstacles very quickly, and it's better to find out sooner rather than later. And this is why it's worth learning to be able to go into your own Akashic records, to be able to communicate in the astral planes with the spirit of the person. And you can do that with people that are passed over. You can do it with people that are still alive as well. You can, for instance, if I met someone now, I've got the ability through astral projection to go into the astral planes and to ask to meet their neutral spirit self and have a conversation with them, and like, what is this relationship about? Why are we coming together? Is there anything outstanding? Do I owe you anything? Have you got anything of mine? And you can actually be doing a lot of healing on your relationship in the astral plane, which is going into the software and the programming of consciousness that's creating your reality experience in this relationship. So there's much more to relationships than just the physical level, and looking at the relationship from a psychological level, a mental, emotional level. The spiritual level is the deep-rooted core software programming behind the dynamics of any relationship. So love relationships are obviously more complicated than friendship relationships because of the level of intimacy that's involved. And generally we don't marry our friends. Maybe we should make a point of making friends first before we get into relationships and getting to know people. Back in the day, I've spoken about this before, there would be a 2-year courtship was standard. So there'd be 2 years of courting one another. The couple would be given a hectare of land to build their house on, and their garden, and their plant their food, and within that 2 years doing that work, building that space together and that home together, the love would grow, the unity would grow of being a team. And then 2 years in to that, they would get married and have their family and move forward. So there's a lot to think about going into relationships, and some people jump from one relationship to the next relationship because they've got fear of being alone as well, which can be another problem. Because if you've had problems in one relationship, and it's worth doing this, I highly recommend it, depending on how many relationships you've had. It could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 30, I don't know. Write a list of the negative things in that relationship that you saw in that other person. Because if you have listened to my other videos about the law of projection and about the mirror of consciousness and how people mirror back to us what we need to learn, and what our light side and our shadow side is mirrored back to us. And if you make a list of everything that you've seen in your ex-partners that you didn't like, then these are somewhere in your cubes of consciousness, or else they wouldn't be being shown to you. So let's say that they were like particularly an angry person. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're an angry person, but you may have been angry in the past. You may have been an angry person in another lifetime. You may have had a parent or a grandparent or great-grandparent who was super angry, and that anger is still stored in your cubes of consciousness, because we are made of all these different levels of consciousness, and we hold our ancestral imprints and intergenerational trauma and all sorts of stuff in our consciousness, in and around our DNA, and our energy field, the auric layers, the fields of the templates that are in and around our bodies. We hold that. So when you make a list of ex-partners, even this partner, what you don't like about them, or what triggered you or upset you or offended you, you can go through that list and you can work through that list, clearing these things out of your cubes of consciousness, which is going to help you level up. And then the next person you meet, hopefully they haven't got those same traits that were annoying you. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect, because unless you want, you work and work and work and work and work for years and years and years to get rid of as many as your imperfections as possible, then there's always going to be something in somebody that is going to be an issue. The difference is, when you've cleared those main issues out of your cubes of consciousness and you've got yourself in a position where you're calm, you're compassionate, you're knowledgeable, you understand that people are acting as a mirror to you of your stuff, and the law of projection, the law of reflection. When you understand those, your relationships are going to improve dramatically. Because instead of taking it personally, in that this person's having a go at me, it's going to go, oh, this person is showing anger towards me. Maybe there's some anger that I've got repressed or suppressed in my cubes of consciousness that I didn't know about, or that I've inherited because it's being brought to me. And you'll be more compassionate in your relationship, more understanding. And if you both understand about the law of projection, reflection, and the mirroring, then when you understand that, you understand one another better. This opens you up to a whole higher level of love with your partner, because there is a mature way of looking at the problems that you're having in the relationship when you're bothering one another, or arguing, or winding one another up, or irritating one another, or so on and so forth. When you understand it, when you understand the law of projection, you can have this level of communication and owning it. It's like, it's not just yours, it's not just mine, it's both of us have got this going on some level. Relationships can blossom because of compassion and understanding, and talking about things and educating yourself to this higher perspective together can make a really big difference to your relationship. How many people do you know that have been together for 30, 40, 50 years? I was really lucky. My parents were married for 55 years before my dad passed away. That's a rare thing these days. People give up on relationships very quickly because the other person's this or the other person's that. When we've got any kind of trauma in our system, and trauma can be from relationship breakdown, death of a loved one, death of a pet, accidents, operations, moving house, losing your job. All of these things are traumatic experiences. And even if we're really strong, tough people who just get on with stuff, that trauma still gets stored in our system. All of this needs to be addressed in relationships. I see way too many people in relationships that are stuck in situations where the trauma that either side is not dealing with is affecting the relationship, making them more needy, making them more jealous, making them more it can lead to things like energy vampirism as well. When one person is off balance and they're looking to the other person on a codependent level to make them happy, then one of the person they're looking towards to make them happy is being energy vampired, because no one can make me happy but me. No one can make you happy but you. People do things that make us feel joy and feel happy, but they don't make us happy. If we're not happy in ourselves, nobody else can make us happy. You only need to look out into the world for these people that have got lots and lots and lots of money and lots and lots and lots of toys, but they're still miserable. They're still cheating on their partners. They've still got drink and drug problems, or something like that, because they're not happy in themselves. They don't know how to love themselves because they're looking outside of themselves for love. The good thing about learning to level up and about understanding yourself and understanding your cubes of consciousness and all of these things that we've got stored in our system is you're in control of how much work you want to do on yourself, then when you level up, the outside starts to change. So I highly recommend going through your exes, making a list of the things that bothered you or you weren't happy with in those relationships, and sitting down and having like a really good look at yourself. Is this a mirror of some of my behaviors, or is it something that's stored in my cubes of consciousness that it was being reflected to me? And if it bothered you, if it triggered you, if there was a charge of any kind, if you had an opinion on it, if you've got this urge to fix people, that's another problem. All of these things mean it's in your cubes of consciousness and it's part of you. If you can sit in a room with somebody, a partner who's having a go at you, having a bad day, they're angry, they're lashing out, and like there's no reaction to you as well, you're completely calm and completely compassionate, understanding they've had a bad day, they're going through something, I'm just going to sit here and listen and let them offload, then you're in a good place. Your cubes of consciousness are not imprinted with whatever they've got going on. You're only imprinted with it if you've got a reaction to it, if it triggers you, if it makes you angry, opinionated, creates any kind of charge in your system. So once you've done that, you've got your list, you can work through what needs to be cleared in your consciousness. But if you're moving from one relationship to the next because the last one didn't work out for some reason, then it's important that you really analyse what that reason was, and is it a projection of you? Is there something in you? Have you got trauma? Did they have trauma? Did they have PTSD? Have you got PTSD? Because if you put two PTSD people, and trauma bonding is very, very common in a relationship, that relationship is doomed. It's doomed to stress, to anger, to fear, to negativity on so many different levels, because when people are suffering from things like that, their perspective is different to somebody who isn't suffering from it, and they tend to look towards the negative because they're going into the fight or flight survival mode, and that changes your perspective of the other person. So people start projecting their stuff onto the other person then, and not seeing it in themselves. So any kind of trauma and that, on that level is going to damage a relationship. And we're living in a society now where divorce is rife, single parent families are rife, more and more people are struggling in their relationships. Just think about it. How many people do you know that have been in long-term relationships that are really happy? Probably not that many. And the reason, I believe, not just because of the financial pressures that everyone's under at the moment, and that is ridiculous, but until everyone stands up to the powers that be and does something about it, then that will continue. We can't, we're just going to sit back and let it happen. There has to be a change within. We have to be demanding things like, an end to this and an end to that, and changing the healthcare system and changing the education system and so on and so forth. And until that happens, the trend of broken families is going to continue. But if people understood what I'm sharing about the law of projection and mirroring one another in relationships, and how old trauma damages relationships, if you don't heal your trauma is a program in your machine of your relationship, the software of your relationship. It's always going to cause problems, because the reflection is going to reflect that traumatized aspect of your personality through the other person. So there's always going to be an issue in the relationship. So healing your trauma is not just going to affect you. Healing your trauma is going to affect your partner, it's going to affect your friends, your family, and people around you. So if you're in a situation where you get in, you realize this and get into healing your trauma, then you may start to notice a difference in the people that you hang around with, in who's in your energy field. Some people may move on that were a lower frequency to you. Other people may come in that are new and a higher frequency. So the old friends go and new friends come in, because you've moved up into a higher bandwidth. And this is where my videos where I've talked about how life is like going through an apartment block. We go up through these levels until we get to the penthouse, and every level it gets better because we're purer and more refined, and the world around us changes as a result because it's a reflection of us. So looking into past relationships and seeing what it was in those past relationships that may have followed you into this relationship, and making an effort to heal those things, and clear the trauma patterns that are ancestral programs, patterns passed down. They're passed down through our family lineage. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight, guys. I hope it's been useful. Every time you heal something within you, if you make a list of what didn't go right in your last relationships, and just write it down and think about it, take a deep breath. Did this trigger me? If it triggers you, it's in your cubes of consciousness. It needs to be healed. But one of the best things you can do for yourself is to go through that and heal those things, particularly if you're looking to moving into a new relationship at this point. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of energies coming in. We've all got the opportunity to work with those energies, to heal ourselves, to level up, to manifest, a new job, new partner, new body if you're working on yourself, whatever that is. This is a time to be doing it. But the more we ignore it, the more the universe is going to come and give us a slap in the face to have a look at it. So nothing is going to just go away. Pushing things down, suppressing, repressing, ignoring, that can't go on, because nothing's going to change. You move from one relationship to the next because that person was controlling, and the next person's going to be controlling. And what's being mirrored, are you controlling? If that person was manipulative, the next person's going to be manipulative. If that person was gaslighting you, the next relationship is going to be gaslighting you, because those programs are still running in your cubes of consciousness, and it's not going to change. Leave that person and just manifest a new person. The programs are still the same. A new person doesn't change. They might be slightly different in their behaviors, but the deep-rooted stuff is not just going to go away because you changed the person. The programs are in the simulator. The programs are in the mass consciousness, in the collective consciousness. And only you can change that. Only we can change what's happening in our lives. No one can change it for us in that respect. We need to go into our own consciousness and change those cubes of consciousness, take the patterns out, the imprints out, the false beliefs, the negative emotions that we've got stored in relation to them. And then the outside will start to change. Better people start coming into your life. Better partners start coming into your life. Could be things like self-love or self-worth, or what you don't think you deserve a good partner because of something. All of these things need to be assessed. But you know you better than anyone. So when you look into your past relationships around you and you start to make note of these things, sometimes it becomes very obvious that's why that relationship broke down. If you had a bad relation, if you're a woman and you had a bad relationship with your father, for example, then those traits are going to come in with future boyfriends, because that's your belief system. The same goes if you're a guy and you had a bad relationship with your mother, that your mother let you down or abandoned you or so on. Then you're going into relationships as a grown-up expecting women to let you down and abandon you, because that's the pattern that you were brought up with. And everything up until the age of 7-ish is programmed into our system, straight into the core subconscious layer, because the first 7 years of our lives were in theta brainwave frequency. That's when we absorb everything. When we're in theta, we can access the subconscious. That's why I use breathing exercises in all of my online courses and audios to take people into the theta brainwave frequency, because that's opening the doors to the subconscious to get in and to take those core programs out and turn them back to a blank sheet. We turn them back to neutral. So it's not overriding them with making up new stories. We just blank sheet that. So it's like starting from being in the neutral position again. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining me. And if you're on my Instagram, there is a deal on there at the moment with my online courses that they're less than half price. So if you haven't had a look at that, please do check that out. I think you've got another 24 hours on that one. And I'll see you all again next week. The next Patreon upgrade is the 7th of July. And then it's on the 27th as well, I think. Yeah, 27th, 28th. It's on my Patreon channel. Okay. Actually, no, it's the 21st. It's 2 weeks after the 7th. So it'll be the 21st. So I lost the calendar out of my head then. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend to everyone, my friends in Canada. Happy Canada Day for the 1st of July. And I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.